Hello YouTube, this is Mahadeva, the OG Thunder Wizard. And so today I want to talk to you about magic. And I'm going to talk to you about 4 arbitrary types of magic that I'm going to bring to your attention. Because the truth is that we live inside of a magical 3-dimensional sphere. And everything that is happening to you is magical. It's your illusion that it's not. You are the one that makes the decision what is magic and what isn't. The truth of the matter is that absolutely everything that you could point at is magical. Even your misery. If you are deeply in misery, guess who created it? In fact, it's amazing to me. I think of some people that I have known in my life, I've known their whole lives, and actually how hard they work to be miserable. Now, of course, they don't see it that way. They don't realize that's what they're doing. But I look at it and I see somebody who, if they put 10% of the amount of effort that they put into being miserable or sick or poor or unhappy or whatever it is, they just put 10% of that into having a good life, they rule the world. So everything is magical. There's a really strange looking creature flying by my window. That's magical. The fact that I'm able to make a bunch of noises that fall out of my face and that go electronically through this thing, this tiny little thing, that I call a laptop, and it somehow gets to you live and you get to watch and listen to it. That in itself is magical. The whole thing is magical. So I'd like for you to think about that. Anyway, I've been thinking about magic lately, and I got a question on the channel. I love getting questions on the YouTube channel as well as the live Q&As here. And so I'm just going to read this question. I'm not going to read the whole thing, at least I don't think I am. But this person brings up some good questions. First, this person says, "Thank you so much for the Hool breath technique. I find that it helps me to sit and meditate for longer and has cleared my chest." And she says, "Smoking has taken its toll." So let me just start off with just what could be an obvious thing. We in the West, in Western society, we look at everything from our intellect. And that's because starting 2,000 years ago, we were introduced with this false religion that was all about what you think. In order to be a Christian, you have to intellectually accept this idea that there was this guy named Jesus who was God, and he was sacrificed on the cross for your sins and died and resurrected 3 days later. And the way you get entry into that deity and into his heaven and into the religion is by intellectually believing it. That's it. And so we look at everything intellectually, even magic. So one of my biggest beefs with modern Western magic isn't that it doesn't work, because I've seen some of it that actually does work, but it's just so intellectual. And trying to do a big Western magical ritual as opposed to some of the other stuff I've done in other traditions is like trying to drive an 18-wheeler in a tiny slalom course when you could be driving an electric motorcycle through it. And so the first thing I want to say is, let's just get out of our heads. It's not what you think. Chaos magic is like that. Chaos magic says that, and I only know what little I've read of it, but chaos magic, as I understand it, says that everything is arbitrary. And if I decide that these earbuds are a magical item, then I'm going to load it with my arbitrary intention, and then, numbers. You can make, symbols, and you load those symbols. So it's all this intellectual, arbitrary, even the word chaos. Nothing really has any order. It doesn't come from anywhere. There's no laws that you follow. You make it up as you go. This is very Western. Of course, Westerners would come up with chaos magic. It's intellectual effort to manifest your reality. And so instead of looking at reality as this illusion, as this thing that doesn't exist, I want you to think of it instead as this magical, fantastical, realm. Because it is. Now, I'm lucky. I live somewhere where I can, it feels like that to me because I'm surrounded by rainforest and crazy, funky sounding creatures and, all kinds of stuff like that. So it's easy for me to get into that vibe. Might not be easy for you where you live. But even if you look outside the window and you see nothing but big buildings everywhere, I mean, think about that. That, for our ancestors, 2,000 years ago, would have been a crazy, magical, weird thing. So we're already living in a magical place. And I don't want you to think that magic is anything other than what you are. Even the fact that your body exists. Before I go any further, let me share with you something you may or may not know. This again goes back to, this person who talked about it, cleared up her smoking. I don't know if she still smokes or if she's quit. I don't know even if it's a he or a she. I don't know if this person has quit smoking, but I would strongly recommend, if anybody here wants to be powerful, forget about being healthy. That's an obvious one. You got to drop all the garbage. Smoking, I don't recommend. In alcohol, I don't recommend any kind of mind-altering chemicals. I don't even do caffeine. I don't do any of that stuff because main thing is it gets between me and my fix. And my fix is energy, life force energy. And if you have a technology that allows you to connect to that, then you don't want anything to get in the way of it. So your body, your human body, is not something you want to separate yourself from in order to experience magic. Your human body is the capacitor. It is the amazing technological tool that you can use. You've got all of these things that do absolutely amazing things. And one is you've got the 5 organs. You've got your heart, you've got your liver, you've got your kidneys, you've got your stomach, you've got, did I say lungs? I don't know. You got the 5 major organs there. And these organs obviously are the most important things in terms of your body. One of those goes out, you're dead, it's over, forget about it. But beyond the physical actions that they take, they also are access points to the 5 elements in the cosmos. And when you start to awaken the 5 organs through using the 5 elements, then you start to be able to tap into doing all kinds of crazy things. Then you've got these 3 centers in your body that you can use to purify life force energy. And the life force energy takes on different qualities, starting at the very base level of just life force energy. And there's sexual energy. This is why so many people, if you want to be powerful, you have to be celibate. There's the sexual energy, and then there's the life force energy, just base life force energy. And that can be translated into emotional mind, not this mind, emotional mind energy. And then that can be translated to an even higher realm of intention. Again, intention is not thinking something hard, it's just intending something. I want you to try and get out of the Western mindset, because you probably didn't understand, you might have not understood, why would I call this the mind? Mind is here. This is where the mind lives. And the mind is not your intellect, because as a Westerner, you think your intellect is your mind, and it's not. The intellect is nothing more than a computer that runs on software. That's all it is. But then in the higher centers, there's intention, pure intention, where you just simply intend things and they manifest out of nothing. And so you have all these wonderful things within your body called meridian points, which is what movement and yoga is all about. And then, of course, you've got the spinal column and the kundalini and the 9 chakras. You have so many cool toys that you can plug in and use in order to tap into magic beyond your wildest dreams. First step of that is you got to treat your body like the temple that it is. If you treat it like crap, you're not going to be able to use it. So I just want to lay that foundation, and I want to encourage anybody, because most people who enjoy magic also enjoy doing things that aren't that great for the body because they like the way it feels. That's why I do the spiritual work that I do. I don't do it to be a good person. I do it because it feels good. It takes a little more discipline to get it from the universe than it does from a chemical, but the payoff is much greater. So we're going to be talking about that and some other things. Let's get back to the question here. This person says, thank you so much for the Hool breath technique. Let me put that down here because this is the basic technique. If you haven't done it already, if you're new to my channel, I want you to get used to using this technique. You can go anywhere on YouTube and just type in this Hool breath, H-U-U-L breath. That is a specific meditative technique. It is the base technique if you want to tap into the lineage that I work with. By lineage, I mean the ancestral beings that I work with. And if you want to tap into this power that I use, that's the base technique. But that technique also can be translated when you learn how to do that. You can take that into charms, magical incantations, mantra, even speech. If you want your speech to be magical, because speech is a magical thing. And there was a point in time when every word that came out of your mouth was magical. That's why we use, when you spell a word, that's what it means. We aren't necessarily connected to that nowadays in our modern times, but we can get back to that place. I remember there was a point in time when I was practicing very, very deeply. I actually had to be careful of just anything that came out of my mouth because there was so much energy attached to my words. I had to be careful about what I said. And that's kind of a fun place to be when you have all that energy. So let's get back to the question. Anyway, there's this huge long thing about things that they're doing. This person talks about, I think, trying to use magic, or they used magic in order to win the lottery, or wanting to win the lottery, or something like that. Anyway, this person finally gets to the question at the end of this thing. My questions after all of this: who is the person I see? Okay, so that one I don't know. This person's talking about they have a vision of something. I don't know. I don't know who that person is. If I did, I would tell you, but I don't know. And the next one is it okay to use your powers to win money? And how does one make your powers come when you want them? So is it okay to use your powers to win money? So that's an interesting kind of think about this for a second. Let's just think about the kind of irony in that question. This person just talked about, and I don't disbelieve them. This person wrote this whole thing about how they have all these magical experiences. And they have this, what seems to be an innate magical ability. Simply by learning the Hool breath, they've learned to turn that into a very powerful method to create magic and use it to manifest things. And I think that's great. But then the person says, is it okay to use it for money? And so my thought process to that is, that seems like that's like the basest. When the least power you have is when you need money. So if you're in a situation where you don't have money, and money is a real challenge for you, I'm here to say that let's just forget about magic for a moment. It means that you are not in alignment with what your soul wants to do. It means that you are in conflict. You might not know what it is you want. So this is what it comes down when I ask people, what is it that you want? And to really understand that concept, go and watch my videos, the Shamanic Secret Commandment to a Perfect Life. So watch my videos, get my book. You can go. By the way, the links are here for a reason. Please use them. Before you ask me how much does it cost, can I have a session with you? Please put the effort into, following the links, because that's where you're going to find out how that works. So if you're in a position where money is a real issue, I'm not trying to criticize you for that, but I will say that means that there's something up, because when you are following your soul essence, when you're following the path you're supposed to follow, money is the last thing you need to worry about, because you are in a connection with the universe, and the universe is supplying your needs, because the universe must supply you with all of your resources so that you can follow what your soul desires. Now, don't get me wrong, I struggled with it for a very long time, so I'm not judging you for it. But that is a real waste of magical energy. If you're going to use magic just for money, the likelihood is that if you need that to manifest money, it's more than likely that you're probably going to piss away that money, and then you'll be right back where you were. Because think about it. You win the lottery, and then what ends up happening? You spend all the money, and then you need more money. The overwhelming majority of people who win the lottery end up broke later on. And that just tells you that they're very poor on the inside. The money just disappears. And, there have been times in my life when I had almost no money coming in, and for some reason, I had enough money for everything, and all my bills got paid and my rent got paid, and I'm like, I don't know where the money's coming from. And then there's been other times when there's been no shortage of money coming in, and yet for some reason I didn't have any money. It all has to do with, where you're connected internally. So let me just point that out. You have to ask me that question, can I use magic to manifest money? It really means that you're leaking energy. You're leaking energy out of your body, and the representation of that is that you have no money. So you have to follow that path which is most nourishing for you, which will allow you to gain energy. And then that manifestation of energy will overflow into your life in terms of money. And also you need to be aware of what your conflicts are. What conflict do you have about doing what you want? Because the truth is, if somebody knows what they want, and their life, you have passion towards something in your life that means something to you, you don't spend a lot of time trying to win the lottery. You spend time trying to do that thing that you love doing, and you find ways to make that happen. How can I climb mountains? How can I surf? How can I play ping pong? I mean, whatever it is that you're passionate about, you find ways to make that happen. And when you're not focused on money, you sort of put A and B together. Oh yeah, I'll do this and I'll bring money in here, and you do whatever you have to do, and money finds you. And this is the thing about luck. Luck is something, it's like your cat, maybe that's why, people have lucky cats, and I guess in the Japanese tradition or whatever, you got that lucky cat, idol when you walk into the Japanese restaurant. But your cat is sitting right outside the front door, and you want the cat to come in, and the cat sits there and looks at you, And you walk over to go pick up the cat, and it waits until you're right on top of it, and then he skirts away 5 feet, and then sits there and licks his paw, and looks at you like, yeah, come and get me. Luck is like that. If you chase after luck, it runs away from you. But if you stop chasing it and you go inside and you start doing your thing, next thing you know, the cat walks in and starts, rubbing up against your leg and meowing and purring and wants your attention because you're not paying attention to it. So when you don't want something that bad, you end up finding it. If you're really wanting something, there's something up. Something needs to be addressed within you. So to answer the question, I don't have a problem with people using magic to get money. I mean, I don't have a problem with that, but that just seems like, it's like, you're gonna drive an 18-wheeler to the grocery store a block away when you could ride a bicycle. It's just so much faster and easier. You can get in a car or a scooter or whatever. Why are you putting all of that effort with this big giant to get money? That's a sad state of affairs. So anyway, that's not an attack. That's just a reality of things. So is it okay to use your powers to win money? I mean, I would much rather that you know what your life is about, so that money comes to you. You go after what you want, and money comes chasing after you, because that's the way it works. And here's another one. How does one make your powers come when you want them? That assumes that your powers leave you, and they don't. They're always with you, because everything you do is magical. So, I thought those were a couple of decent questions. But let's take a look at the list that I put up here, because there's all different kinds of magic. I just arbitrarily picked 4 of them. Shamanism, energy magic, black magic, and what I'm calling emptiness magic. So let's talk about shamanism for a moment. So shamanism is not, by the way, shamanism does not mean taking ayahuasca. That does not make you a shaman just because you took ayahuasca. Shamanism is not about getting high off of entheogens. That is not shamanism. Shamanism is a word that we use now, which really the more accurate word would be animism. Animism, A-N-I-M-I-S-M, animism. It means that everything has a spirit, and that everything can be communicated with, everything can be interacted with, including this bottle of water, including rocks, trees, clouds, gods, spirits, ideas, anything. Anything that is in the universe, tangible or intangible, has a spirit with which you can communicate. And so a shaman is somebody who has a connection and can act as an intermediary between the human realm and the non-physical realm. That's all a shaman is. And so if you are separated from the manifested universe, if you're separated from the idea that everything has a spirit, then somebody who's able to communicate and channel things and channel the elements and channel energy and do all that, then that person is going to seem like they have magical abilities. And it's just simply because you aren't connecting to these other forces. And again, this is very common in Western society because people live in their heads. Your head, your intellect, it has one function. That function is to separate things. So the part of you that thinks, I want to figure this out. I want to, going to school, Western schools are very intellectual. You memorize a bunch of notes, and then you spout those notes back when you take a test. You know, you have all this intellectual knowledge. I got nothing against intellectual knowledge. But the intellect separates you. The word intellect in Latin, intellegere, which it means to pick apart from among. In fact, the word to read, leer, in Spanish it's leer, leggere in Latin, and leggere means to pick apart. Because when you look at Roman script, there's no spaces, there's no punctuation, there's just these, and you have to pick apart the words from all of those letters. And so when you read that, that's a word, because they're all strung together. So somebody who's reading it is picking apart the words. And that's very good. The intellect picks apart from among. And we live there. So most of the questions that people are going to ask are going to come from the intellect. Whereas operating from a shamanic perspective is coming from your feelings, coming from your intuitions, coming from your senses. This is, as cheesy as Star Wars is, it's very cheesy. But as cheesy as the Star Wars movies are, it started in the beginning with the first one when Obi-Wan says to Luke Skywalker, he says, reach out with your feelings. And that's not, that's interesting that he did that, because a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people reach out with their thoughts. He says, reach out with your feelings. And this is the shamanic perspective, that you have this huge human body as an organ you can feel on all different kinds of levels. And it's your feelings. People say, I got a gut feeling about something. That's a very shamanic experience. And that comes through, if you're born in the Western world, that comes through practice, because if you live in a city and you've been taught in a Western school and you've gone to Western churches, then you have been trained to live in your head. The internet is the ultimate expression of being isolated in your head. And we have to learn how to unlearn all of that. And it can be very challenging, especially if you live in a loud city, because you go inward to get away from all of the noise, all of the cars and the buses and the planes and the fumes and everybody walking past, and everybody's, if you live in a city, everybody's, emotional garbage is flying around you all the time. So you learn to isolate. And we've got at least 2 or 3 generations of people who have not ever known what it's like to live away from some kind of device. I'm lucky enough to be old enough to remember when we didn't have anything. We had a television that had 13 channels on it, and you had to watch whatever they were transmitting at that time. And in the middle of the night, there's so much stuff that I remember that's just not a part of people's reality anymore. At 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, depending on where you lived, or maybe midnight, the TV station would stop transmitting, and if you turned on the television, all you got was static and what we called snow, and there would just be these white dots all over the thing, and you'd just hear this, and that was it. That was all you got. If you wanted to talk to somebody on the phone, there was no call waiting, there was no answering machine. You had to pick up a phone, you had to dial the number, and then you had to wait, and if they were on the phone, you got a busy signal. That was it. And you didn't know what was going on. You had to keep calling back until you didn't get a busy signal anymore. And then they had to be home and pick up the phone. And if they weren't there, there was a phrase that we said every single day, numerous times a day, that people don't say now, which is so-and-so there? You said that every day. Is John there? You don't do that now, because now you call somebody directly. You email them, you text them. There's just instant gratification. But the end result is you end up stuck in your head. And shamanism is about, not being stuck in your head. People, it's getting less and less, but there are societies where people, if you take them and put them, put a blindfold on them and turn them around, and then put them in a dark room and close the door, they'll be able to figure out where east is, because they'll be able to magnetically feel where east is, and they'll be able to point directly to east or north or whatever it is. Can you do that? Probably not. That's because their body is able to tell them all kinds of things. So shamanism is the ability to really interface with all of what we have here in our world. And if somebody's able to do that, that's going to come across as magic. But in truth, it's not. It's just being able to connect with all the information that we have on different levels, on subtle levels. Stuff that the average person can't see or hear because they're focused on one vibration of reality, which, we think is everything. So that's the first one, which is shamanism. I like to use the word shamanism because shamanism is about balance. Shamanism is a path of dynamic balance. Shamans aren't seeking to become enlightened. They're not seeking to achieve salvation. They're seeking a dynamic state of balance. And they know that, the one thing rises and then that creates an imbalance, but you need that for the moment, and then another thing rises, and then there's constant interchange and balance, and you have to gain balance with the spirit world, with the human world, with the gods. There's this balance to be achieved, and it's a dynamic, shifting balance. It's never static. And that's one of the things I love about shamanism. I think it's very practical. So that's one realm, or one type of magic. The second type of magic I'm going to call energy magic. That's my favorite. So before I go any further, let me just say that whatever type of magic you are going to be best at is because you've been built for it. I'm built for energy magic. That's when I'm not tapping into energy, I'm not a happy person at all. And I'm really grateful that energy magic exists because it's my drug. Don't tell anybody, but I'm a drug addict, and my drug of choice is life force energy, all different kinds. And I get off on it, and I like to, in fact, sometimes I overindulge in it. And if I get involved in really powerful energy magic, I oftentimes will blow a gasket because I do too much of it. But I'd much rather do that than, most people, by the way, the reason why most people who call themselves shamans, the reason why they get into entheogens, the reason why they drink and smoke, and, your average, corner psychic, the reason why they're fat and smoke cigarettes is because they're addicted to something, the feelings that they get from something. And that's that it's expressing itself in ways that aren't healthy. If they could find other avenues of energy connection, maybe they could stop doing the chemicals or whatever it is that they do. But that's why most people who are into shamanism, into magic, they also smoke weed and drink and all that kind of stuff. So I strongly recommend dropping all of that and finding some energy magic that will help you. The 90-day challenge is the latest of the practices that I've been teaching. My celestial Qigong, you can go to spirittao.com and you can get my celestial Qigong. That is, as of yet, the most powerful energy practice I know of. The downside is that it does take a little bit of discipline. It does take some effort. And if you're willing to put the effort into it, some people get the energy like I do immediately. Some people have to put a little bit of effort into it and shift their body and get the meridians opened up. But once they do that, and you've experienced that, there's nothing like it. There's no external chemical that comes even close to the power if you find a real magical, powerful energy magic practice. And if you look for it, you can find it. So before I go any further, let me just say that your ability to do whatever level of magic is going to be hinged on your karma. So it's really important that you drop any victim mentality. Questions like, and I ask these questions so I understand. Questions like, what is the most powerful technique? What is the most powerful this? What's the best way? What's the fastest way? Those questions come from a state of victimhood, because you think that the universe isn't going to give it to you. You need to find it and steal it and cajole it, and you need to find some way to wrest it away from somebody, because the truth is the really powerful stuff is secret. And it's secret for a reason. It's secret because if the average person got their hands on it, they'd blow themselves up. It's like playing with a nuclear bomb. And so when somebody has found, the really, really, truly powerful stuff, they keep it secret. And nowadays, they keep it secret to protect people. In days, gone by, they kept it secret so that your enemies wouldn't find it, because if your enemies got a hold of it, they'd use it against you. So there was a point in time, which lucky we don't live in that time anymore, but there was a point in time when magic was everywhere, and people also, it was dangerous. So for instance, if you look in cultures that have an unbroken connection into their prehistory, meaning like in the West, we don't have that. What happened is that, wherever you lived in Europe, if you were a Celt, or if you were a Viking, or if you were, Greek or Roman or whatever, way back when, we all had, in Europe, we all had access to crazy powerful magic. And then Christianity came along and wiped it all out. So that's why when you talk to somebody, who lives in some other, culture that hasn't had that, they have all these really weird, strange superstitions and customs that we think are, really backward and primitive. But if you live with them in their world for long enough, you start finding out that they have a lot of really, really powerful methods that help them to survive. So like if, for instance, like my African drum teacher, I learned a style of drumming that when you do the rhythms right, stuff happens. I'm telling you, the portals open up and beings show up and all kinds of strange things happen. And, it's not just playing because it feels good. No, you have to play a specific rhythm with another rhythm, and then maybe there's a chant that goes into it, and the vibrations all come together, and you can feel like the portals opening up to other realms. And, he had, I don't know if he knew how to do it, but he said, no, there's ways you can, somebody 100 miles away, if you want to kill him, you play a certain rhythm and think a certain thing, and that person's dead. And that's kind of stuff you got to keep secret. You're playing around with all kinds of different energies. Of course, it can be used for healing as well. Of course, if you go deep into India, there are things that you guys wouldn't believe that exist. I can remember my African teacher talking about, somebody being able to just, out of thin air, just, putting something in your hand that wasn't theirs, and they didn't pull it from anywhere. China's the same way. They're starting to lose it, unfortunately. But like if you get into southern China, which used to be like the Wild West, because that's where all of the people who were running away from the, when the different imperial, first you had the Hans, and then they were taken over by the Manchu people. And so people would have to hide. They'd have, whole races of people would have to go and hide in the mountains or hide in the jungles, so that they wouldn't get killed. But things were really tough. You had, everybody wanted to steal from you. You got bandits, you got the guy next to you, you had to fight for your life. So they learned martial arts. That's why there's so much kung fu, especially in southern China, because you had to learn how to kick somebody's ass to just survive. And you also had to learn a lot of magic, because the guy next to you in the other village is using magic against you because he wants your water. Simple stuff like that. So that's why where you go, magic can show up in all kinds of different ways. And your morality about it has to shift based on where you are. So that's why there's dangerous magic that can be used to give you all kinds of power, or it can be used in a way that can be harmful to others or harmful to you. But you have to put your morals on the back burner, to be able to access some of that secret, powerful stuff. I forgot why I got started on that, but we've got our energy magic. So energy magic is my favorite. And energy magic, there's two ways to do energy magic. I'll talk about the most common way, which is you have to absorb energy through your energy work, whether that be through breath technique or through meditation or through moving meditation, or whatever it is that you do to get energy. Yoga is one of those kinds of things. Qigong Tai Chi is a very powerful form of magic if you can find somebody who teaches you the real thing. And you absorb energy. You absorb chi energy, life force energy from outside into your body, and you store it. And then you have this power within you that you can then send out your hands or send out through your intention. And so this is why a lot of magicians are celibate, because you have to store energy so that you can release it. There's other ways to use life force energy that are more dangerous, and those are a lot harder to find, which is you don't have to store it up, you connect directly to it, but that's something I really can't talk about. So energy magic is another one, which basically all the stuff that I teach you is energy magic. And I love that. So if you're meant for that, that's another way to go. That's my favorite way to go. So let's see what else. Energy magic, black magic. So I read the question about, can I use magic to win the lottery? Now let me just say, there's really no such thing as white or black magic. It doesn't exist. There's just magic. But there is actual, what we would call black magic, which takes a toll on you. And that's when you use spirits. The average black magician, somebody who represents themselves as a black magician. And I'm not just talking about in the West. Again, when we're talking about Western magic, we got all different kinds of people. There's some Western magicians that have power, and then there's just Western magicians that are just lost in their fantasy. They don't have a clue what they're doing, and they call themselves magicians, but they don't really have any power. That's my experience. Most Western magicians have a lot less power than the other practices that have an unbroken connection into prehistory. Those are a lot more powerful in my experience. Your experience might be different. But when you use black magic, usually that means using spirits to do the work for you. So you conjure up spirits, or you conjure up ghosts, or you create spirits to do things for you, to whatever it is that you want to do. That's a real common way. In fact, you can go online and find it right now. You can find some Chinese guys who will dredge up a ghost for you, who will find out what the lottery numbers are going to be. That's one method of black magic. And there's no shortage of people that pay those guys, those Chinese guys, to do some ritual and to give them, the numbers from some lottery, because some ghost, and they do things like they take the ghosts of babies, children that die young, and they'll find those spirits and take them hostage and use them, to do work for you. That kind of stuff, the karma associated with that is very bad. And that stuff will catch up with you. So that's when you see what's the word for that? When you see the typical stereotype of the black magician is somebody who's really old, and they're, like in Star Wars, the Sith Lords always end up looking really old, and they look like vampires, that life force is getting sucked out of them, because that's what happens. You end up giving away your life force energy not only when you tap into that, use demons and spirits to do your work for you, but the mindset is really what does it. Because a person doesn't do that unless they don't trust the universe. If you trust the universe, you don't think about black magic. You don't think about trying to use some spirit to gain some power over people, or to gain money from other people, or you don't think like that unless you don't trust the universe. So if a lot of you listening to me want to get a hold of magic because you want power, you want to be able to get money, you want to be able to get love, you want to be able to get influence, you want to be able to use it to, get on top of other people, compete with other people, you're coming from an assumption about the universe that's inaccurate. That assumption in and of itself will pull the energy out of you. So you might gain some power in the short term, but in the long run, and I'm telling you this, you've probably heard this everywhere, and every fairy tale you hear this, but I've seen it. I've seen, I can think of people where I've seen that happen to them, and you don't want to end up where they ended up. So when I use the word black magic, I'm talking about that, using some kind of nefarious means, using something outside of yourself, a spirit or something, and or when you're doing it to gain something, like using a love spell to get somebody to fall in love with you. Well, it's one of the most stupid things you could ever do. I can't imagine, that's just so ridiculously stupid. Using a spell to, again, to manifest money. It's okay, so you manifest money, now what? You're gonna spend it, and then what? If you use magic to get money, it's really, you're taking out a loan against yourself, against your own energy. So the universe is going to come back, and it's going to get its money back from you, and it's going to charge interest. So I don't recommend that. I don't recommend using black magic in those really low grade ways to get money, to get sex, to get power, to get something like that. It ends up not. It's the problem. Really, again, is it starts from a complete misunderstanding about your relationship to the universe. It means you don't understand who you are. It means you think you're tiny and the universe is big. And the opposite is true. The truth is, the universe is your creation. So if you can remember that you're the one that created everything, then you don't need to do any tricks to get what you need. It'll be given to you. And I have a question for you. How many beds can you sleep in at one time? How many cars can you drive at one time? I was going to say, how many people can you have sex with at one time? But you can have sex with multiple people. But you see where I'm going with this. People think if they get a lot of money, if they get a lot of stuff, they're going to be okay. But the truth is, I can only sit in one chair at a time. So it doesn't matter how many bedrooms I have or how many cars I have. I can only use one at a time. So if that's all you have, if you're by yourself and you live in a one-room house, you've got all you need. How many televisions can you really watch at one time and pay attention? Really, you can only watch one. So being poor isn't necessarily a bad thing if the amount of money you have gives you exactly everything you want. So when it comes to black magic, the real problem again is the mindset. The mindset is the assumption that you can't get what you need and that the universe doesn't want to give it to you. If you flip that around, then you live in a whole different universe. All kinds of different things can happen. So that's a little bit about black magic. And I'm going to talk now about what I call emptiness magic. There's a guy, you can look for him on YouTube. His name is Haleakala Hugh Lin. He's a Hawaiian Huna shaman. And he has all kinds of really crazy stories about the kind of stuff, the kind of magic he does. But he comes from this place of everything is his projection. These are my words. Everything is his projection, and his job is to purify. So when he runs into something in his world that he doesn't connect with well, then he has this karmic duty to fix it. So if he runs into somebody that's harmful to him or causes him damage or something like that, his thought isn't, oh my God, there's this horrible person out there doing things to me. He goes, oh, look at that. That's a part of me that needs fixing. So if he goes into himself and listens to himself, his soul will tell him that you have a destiny to work through that. So in other words, if you decided to be, if he took you on as a client or as a student, it would be because his soul had told him that he had a karmic debt to himself to fix that. And so he sees all of these things outside of himself that are less than perfect as bad, what he calls bad data within himself. I would call it unconscious, bad patterns in your unconscious. And the whole point of mantra, by the way, mantra is about becoming conscious of all of the bad patterns in your unconscious. And when you clean those out, then you're able to manifest your reality. You don't have to ask yourself, where am I going to get money? How am I going to do this? You just simply listen to what your soul wants in every given moment. And your soul will guide you to every perfect little thing. Again, where I'm living now, I would imagine that this is the best place in the world to live at the moment. Because while two people that I know in the US just got COVID, and they're sick with COVID. They're sick in bed with COVID right now. And where I have, there's no COVID. Zero. You can walk around and talk to people and hug people, shake hands. You don't have to worry about it because there's a travel ban and people aren't able to come into this area. And so there just isn't any. And I didn't know that. I came here before COVID hit, and here I am now. I'm good to go. I get to live my life and get everything that I want, and I don't have to deal with all this COVID nonsense. And that's because I listen to what my soul wants me to do, and your soul guides you to what you need. So you have challenges in your life, it probably means there's some conflict between you and your soul. And if you get connected to what your soul wants, your soul will pretty much guide you where you need to go. And you can also be surrounded by horrible chaosness, but if you're connected to your soul, you'll just float right through all of the problems. As everybody else is melting down, you'll just seemingly float through it all. So this is being connected to your soul. So the 0 point, he calls it the 0 point. And he wants to stay, this guy Haleakala Hulin wants to stay in his 0 point. Because as long as he's in 0 point, he will know intuitively what to do. So he can pretty much just not even be thinking about from one moment to the next what he's doing. He's just completely in touch with that 0 point. Because it's the 0 point where things manifest. And, this is, if you imagine that there's like the created world, and then there's the place where everything is created and it manifests out of this state of nothingness. And that's where you want to be. And that's where you can want nothing, need nothing, and have nothing, and still have everything. And that's why you've got people who have everything and they're miserable. They're sick, they're miserable, they're unhappy, they're alone, they have no freedom, because they think that they need to steal from the world, because they don't believe the world will give them what they want. So they have to go out and steal it and get it. So those are some things about the 4 types of magic. There was other stuff I wanted to talk about, but it's not coming to mind. I'm happy to take questions. How many people do we got? It's late at night. We've got 30 people on. Okay. So the way this works, if you're new to the channel, this is a question and answer. The way that you ask me a question is you write the word in all caps. If you look in the live stream here, you write the word question in all caps, and then just write your question. Make sure you write out a full question with a sentence so that I can understand it, and I'll do my best to answer it if I have the answers. Before I go any further, again, just let me talk about the 90-day challenge. If you haven't checked it out, go there. Go to thunderwizard.com and click around for the 90-day challenge, the Warrior 90-day challenge. Because as you know, my energy magic of choice, my magic of choice is energy magic. And what I've found is that in order to be able to change my reality, I need to be empowered and plugged in and have the cells of my body vibrate on a higher level. That does all kinds of things for me, but one of the things that it does for me, it gives me the ability, the power to make changes in my life, to change the things that I do, to understand the patterns within me that aren't serving me and change. So that particular, the first level, which is there now, is about connecting you to the heart and allowing you to listen to the heart, because the soul knows exactly where to go. And if you're in that soul zone, the universe will provide everything for you, and then there's no need for magic. There's no need for trying to get something out of the universe. It just magically appears, even beyond what you think you want. It just appears for you. And so I have a practice that I teach, which is not me talking like I am now. You just press play, and then you just listen to the voiceover, and you just follow the directions with me. These are things that I do. Just follow me as I do my stuff. The next one coming is going to be very powerful. I'm channeling and working with some really powerful energy stuff that's going to be coming soon. I have to test it out and make sure that I don't blow a gasket, because I have to make sure that that anybody can do it and they won't hurt themselves. But it is my goal to give you the most powerful magic available that will be the most helpful for you. So I would get started with the 90-day challenge, level 1, and by the time level 2 comes around, you'll be ready for it. Let's take a look at the questions. Riho Rasta, by celibate, do you mean orgasms, ejaculation, or intimacy overall? I mean both. So the first level is when you have sex with another person. First off, let me just say before we get into this, it's not necessary. I was spelling out to you one of the paths of gaining magical power, and in one of the paths you have to be celibate. So please don't think that I mean that you have to do that. I've been both, and I've had power on both ends, and they both do different things depending on what method you're using. So having said that, don't feel any pressure to do that. If it's something that you're karmically drawn to do, that's different. Don't force it. There's nothing worse than trying to force celibacy onto you. It's the worst thing. I don't recommend it at all. Having said that, that is one way. So if you're going what's called there's one path where you use sexual energy, which then creates life force energy, which then creates emotional energy, which then creates intention. And so that path you do in order to really gain power. I mean, you can still do it if you're not celibate, but being celibate helps. So that is not releasing any fluids. Now let me make something very clear. Don't do that unless you have a technique that allows you to do that. I'll give you one right now. If you go to the thunderwizard.com, I teach it there, but you can just Google it, and there's other people that do it. And it's a exercise called Sat Kriya. If you do that every day, that will help to take the sexual fluids and pump it up the spinal column to the pineal and the pituitary, where it ends up. But don't try and be celibate without a technique. It's just a waste of time. Just please. And it's dangerous. There's also techniques that people use to try and have orgasms without releasing fluid, and it's very damaging. So don't do any of that stupid garbage. I made myself clear? Don't harm yourself. Be a natural human. But if you really want to try that, you try the Sat Kriya and do the best that you can. That is one technique that can be used. The other one is intimacy overall. So there's another kind of celibacy where you don't merge your energy with other people. Now that's important because if you are seeking to gain energy and you don't have energy, if your meridians aren't open, then there's a good chance that you will get involved sexually or romantically with somebody who also is lacking in energy. And what ends up happening is one person will end up taking the other person's energy. That works out good if you have somebody. This is why, by the way, like young guys in their teens and 20s, why they fall asleep. If you ladies, you've experienced this. You date a young guy, he's great in bed, but then as soon as the magic happens, he turns over and falls asleep. You're wanting to have pillow talk and he's out cold. Well, that's because he just dumped all of his energy into you. Now, all of his sexual energy, which he doesn't realize is gold, it's driving him crazy, so he wants to release it. He wants to release it so he can relax. And so I was like that when I was in my 20s. They're great sex partners, but they're horrible relationship partners. So that's great for you because he's dumping all of his excess energy into you. But if you get involved, if you're a guy, and this is true with girls too, but it's especially true with guys, if you get involved with a woman who has unresolved emotional issues, especially if they're very needy, like they're very empty inside and they're very needy and they're leaking energy, if they're people pleasers, if they have daddy issues, this kind of stuff where they're constantly feeling like they're not getting enough and they need men and they need relationships, those kinds of women will pull the energy out of you. And you see this with guys. Like you go and watch guys that are taking care of 2 or 3 kids. You'll see this. You'll see they look old. They're in their 30s. They look older than me. They don't have any energy. Well, that's because they got a wife who pulled the energy out of them. Now, men can do it to women too. Don't get me wrong, but that's one of the easiest ways that you can do it. There's a reason why I don't have kids. That's one of them. One of the greatest ways to lose your energy is to have a kid. So all of that energy goes into the child, and the child keeps taking energy throughout your life. Now, if you're karmically destined for that, then you're going to love that, and it won't have a bad effect on you. For me, it would kill me if I did that. So there are 2 kinds of celibacy. There's one where you don't have any sexual release, and then the other one where you don't merge your energy with another person. So here's the other thing about sexual intimacy. I don't have any judgments. Just be clear, I don't have any judgments about your sex life or what you choose to do. And I certainly haven't followed any type of moral thing when it comes to that. But when you have sex with somebody casually, what ends up happening is that there are parts of you that start to bond. When I was in college, there was a saying that said, once you have sex 3 times, you're pussy whipped, which meant, that's your girlfriend. So don't, only if you want to just have casual sex, only have sex with a woman twice and then, find another one. I'm sorry, ladies, that sounds horrible. This is the kind of stuff that men do when they're young. But there's a truth to that, which is that, when you have sex 2-3 times, you start to bond on an energetic level. So have you ever noticed that after sex, you're thinking about that person for days? Because their energy is inside of you, which is their, and there's a thread of connection between you and their unconscious. And so that gets in the way. If you are going after some high energetic, magical, spiritual attainment, and you want to connect directly to the universe, and you're having sex with somebody that isn't on that same plane with you, or has an energy or a psychological issue, then it's going to energetically pull you out of that. And that's true with both men and women. So that's the benefit of, you're not necessarily not ejaculating, but you're not doing it with somebody else. So nobody else is getting in the way of your focus. Again, I have no judgment one way or another. I like all forms of living and interacting. They're all fun for me. So I don't have it's all about your karma in life and where you need to go. You can see here vincent.thunderwizard.com. You see him there. You can go to that website. He's got it spelled out there, but you can go to that. He's one of my apprentices, and he can give you a very good astrology reading. So go check him out. I strongly recommend doing that if you haven't done that. Talking about magic, I recommend for everybody, if they don't have a magical practice, to get a reading from me or from one of my apprentices and get a mantra ritual that comes directly out of your astrological chart. It'll trust me, it'll do very powerful things for you. If you get somebody who knows how to look at your chart and know what planet, what deity, what mantra, what element, your chart has what you need, the specific magical ritual you need to help you gain your success. Can you give us, Romeo, can you give us a good shielding technique for beginners? So again, Romeo, welcome to the channel. One of the things that I kind of demand is that people give me more information so that I can best help them. So there's an assumption in your question that you need a shielding technique. I might be able to give you a shielding technique, but it might not be what you need, because I don't know why you think you need to be shielded. Shielded from what? From people, from spirits, because you might just be operating from a faulty interaction between you and the universe. What you think you need is to be shielded, and what really needs to happen is you need to let go and move out of your parents' house and get your own place. I don't know. I have no idea what your living situation is. That would be funny if I was right, though. So tell me why. First, tell me why you think you need a shielding technique, and then I'll see if I can best help you. Raymanovich, question. When you did those videos about Aruda Lagna in the 7th house, like Aruda Lagna in the Sun in the 7th house, 5 Sun in the 7th house, to continue in the next question, and my Aruda Lagna moves to the 10th house. Okay, so Raymond, as I have said, there are videos that I've made where I have gone back and forth about, can the Aruda Lagna be in the 7th house? In case you don't know what I'm talking about, the Aruda Lagna is, everyone has one. It's the reflection that the world sees. And one of the things we need to do is figure out how people see us, which could be completely different from how we see ourselves or how we want to be seen. And we actually have to present ourselves the way that people see us, not the way we want to be seen. And when you do that, you're successful. People will give you money and give you jobs. He's asking about that. And so a lot of people don't know what their Aruda is, and a lot of people really fight with it. They don't want to be their Aruda. For instance, I'm the shamanic warrior. And so this is what all the shaved head and the muscles and the this and all that, that's me playing my part. The more that I present myself that way, the more money I make. I didn't like it in the beginning, but now I'm getting used to it. So Raymond's been pestering me trying to figure out his Aruda, and I keep trying to help him. It's, Raymond, the reason why I'm answering you the way that I am is because one of the things I want you to do is I want you to start being able to stop and think for yourself. Do the work, the research yourself. You're wanting me to hand you everything. If that's what you need, then that's what you need. I'm hoping it's not. Because one of the things, if you want to be, not just you, Raymond, but anybody, if they want to be successful in magic, you've got to learn to do the work. You've got to learn to be self-motivated, to read, to research, to listen, to experiment. You can't expect everybody to feed you all the time. Sometimes they need to. So Raymond might need that. So I already answered your question. You're asking me this long question, and what you want to know is what your Aruda is. It's real simple. If your Aruda falls in the 1st or the 7th house, it automatically goes to the 10th house. So you don't take your sign from your 7th house and put it in the 10th. That's not what that means. It means you just look at the 10th house. The 10th house is your Aruda. I've tried to make it simple for you, and you seem to be having a hard time figuring it out. So you say, my Aruda Lagna moves to the 10th house from the 7th. It doesn't move from the 7th. The 7th is no longer the Aruda. The 10th house is the Aruda. So you're not picking up the 7th and moving it to the 10th. The 10th house is the Aruda. Whatever the sign is, whatever planets are there, that's your Aruda. I hope that's clear. I tried to make that clear in our last interaction. My apologies if I didn't. Yeah, so you're asking me, does that mean my Aruda will not have the powers of the sun? What difference does it make? It's going to have whatever it has. You're attached to whatever you're attached to. Maybe that's my fault. Maybe you got a reading from me or something, and I was in flux there. I don't know. But it is whatever it is. So your Aruda, it doesn't mean you don't have powers of the sun. It just means that that's not how people see you if your sun is not in the Aruda. If I remember correctly, you said Aries. Aries is very powerful. In fact, Aries in the 10th house is one of the most powerful scenarios. So, enjoy it. There's power in that. Okay? So, stop trying so hard. That's what's bugging me about all of your questions. You're trying so hard. There's this need. I can feel the need and the insecurity. You're fine just the way you are. Stop trying so hard. Anyway, I hope I made myself clear on that. Do I see any other questions? I don't. So, you know what happens if you don't ask me questions? I gotta either sell you stuff or entertain you. So I've already tried to sell you on the 90-day challenge, which I recommend everybody go check out. And while we're doing that, you should also subscribe to this channel. And I'm gonna bring in my celebrity guest to explain to you why you need to subscribe to my channel.
Hey there, this is Arnold. I have a very important announcement. I command you to listen to me. This is Arnold Swears He's Bigger, and I'm here to tell you something very important. You must go to thunderwizard.com YouTube channel, subscribe and hit the bell button. I command you to do this. It's the most important thing you're ever going to do in your life. If you don't listen to me now and hear me later and go and subscribe, I'm going to come to your house and I'm going to shame you in front of your whole family. I'm going to go to your school and I'm going to chastise you in front of your friends. I'm going to go to your church. I'm going to stand in front of the whole congregation and I'm going to tell people how stupid you are for not going and subscribing to this channel. I tell you now, it's the most important thing you're ever going to do. You have to go and subscribe right now, otherwise my head is going to explode. Do it now, I command you.
Alrighty there, welcome back. So let me get my 90. Okay, let's get this back up there. All right. No questions? You guys know everything there is to know about magic? Let me see, is there something else that I want to say about it? So just to recap, everything is magical. And if you can understand that everything is a form of magic, just the fact that you're here. I mean, you think about all of the things that had to come together to make you. The odds. I mean, we know from just by observation that any kind of life is extremely rare. Now, if you look at the whole universe, the odds of there being life forms on different planets it's impossible for there not to be other planets with life on it. But that's because the universe is infinite. But when you start to then look at the odds, and I was listening to some astrophysicist who was breaking down the odds, and when people were, he said the reality is that, yeah, there's got to be alien cultures on, who knows how many millions of planets, but the universe is so big, and the odds of all of the things coming together to create life is so slim that those other planets would have to be beyond our ability to reach them. For instance, like when we look out into the universe, we can only see so far because light and other things can only travel so far. And so there's a limit to how much we can see into the universe. But the universe is infinite. So the likelihood of finding life within, the quadrillions of planet systems from just what we can see is unlikely. So there's life, but it's going to be out of even our ability to visualize it, which means it would be impossible for them to travel here because, just within what we can see, we're talking millions, billions of light years, which means that they live beyond the trillions, quadrillions of light years away from us, which means that there's just the likelihood, the possibility of them even finding us, getting connected to us is minuscule. Not that there isn't life, there's no shortage of life out there in the universe, but it's a huge universe and they're just not going to get to us and we're not going to get to them. So when you think about the odds of what it took for you to exist, is phenomenal. How can that not be magical? And if you can change your assumption, people are usually into magic, and I'm not judging it because I love the idea of magic. People are usually into magic because they want an edge. Bodybuilders take steroids because they want an edge. They want to get huge, and their body will only get, my body's about as big as, I couldn't get any bigger than I am. If I wanted to get bigger, I'd have to take steroids. So it's an edge. You want that edge over something. It starts from this feeling that you're not enough. And I'm here to tell you that the most powerful magic is reserved for people who don't feel that way. The people who feel like they need that extra something are the people who aren't going to find the real magic, the real power. And there's crazy power that's available. There's magic that can do stuff that you can't even begin to comprehend. In terms of energy, like energy magic, there's energy magic out there. You would not believe the power that is available if you could just plug into it. And I've tested out a whole bunch, and I've run into a couple secret stuff, and it's a whole different world. But part of the reason I ran into it is because I stopped looking for it. And I learned how to appreciate what I had. So whatever you have, if you have mantra, if you have yoga, if you have Tai Chi, if you have Qigong, if you have meditation, you have runes, you have all these things just on my channel. All those things that I just mentioned are on my channel. And if you picked one of them, those, and even if it didn't give you everything that you wanted, which, by the way, don't stop wanting to, achieve everything. If you want to be, a wizard and be able to do the highest, most powerful magic in existence, I'm not telling you to stop wanting that. But it starts with whatever you find, appreciate it. Because even in the basics, let me give you an example. The martial art I practice is one of these magical things where, if I were to use it in a martial way, every time I have used it in a martial way, person on the other end is like, how the hell did you do that? They're and I say, yeah, well, that's a whole other subject. And what was I trying to say with that? I was trying to say that there are martial arts that look identical to the one I practice. Now, I can look at it and I can see the tiny little shifts in it that change it completely. I can talk to them and I can tell that their mindset is just a little bit, just like 2 degrees different. And just that 2 degrees puts them in a whole different dimension. And so they'll be trapped in that dimension. And that's where they're supposed to be there. So I don't try and talk them out of it. I'm supposed to be where I'm at because I have a karmic destiny there. So I'm allowed to go there. But it starts with, those guys, like the guys I'm talking about, I'm thinking, I'm not going to use any names of a specific martial art, an esoteric Chinese martial art. They're so close. And if I were to go in there and just shift it just the tiniest little bit, things would open up for them like they wouldn't even know what to do with it. But to get to where I'm at, you've got to start wherever you are, and you've got to ask that. If it's yoga, if it's Qigong, if it's Tai Chi, for example, you start asking Tai Chi, tell me your secrets. Show me your secrets. Assume that whatever path that you have in front of you, if it's mantra, if it's yoga, if it's spell work, if it's runes, Qigong, whatever the hell it is, assume that whatever path that you have access to is a doorway to the infinite. And if you are willing to really appreciate and savor and really study and work for what you have, what'll happen is at some point within that, a little door will open. It's like somebody will open the door and say, okay, come on in here. Let me show you something. Because if you were to be shown that door when you first walked in, you wouldn't know what to do with it. You wouldn't understand it. It might be too subtle, or it might, you know what it is? You know what I'm saying? So if you want to really make progress, what I'm saying is learn the fundamentals of whatever it is. Do not indulge in feelings of not having enough, not being enough. Learn to appreciate the magic in everything that you have, because once you do get to one of those really high level, crazy, esoteric things, you start going, oh my God, this was with me the whole time. I just didn't see it. Okay? All right, so I do see a couple of questions have popped up here. Raymond, you're not a difficult person. This is my weakness. You're not a difficult person. You're doing just fine. I just feel, I'm like this with everybody. I just want to push you to do the work and to think, because I gave you the answer. Gave you the answer you were looking for, but the reason why you didn't hear it is because of what I just said. Because you were worried that you didn't have enough and it wasn't enough, and if I don't find this and if I don't get that, drop that. Learn to drop that. I know that doesn't happen overnight. But you're not a difficult person. You're doing just fine. Vitalia Shvailikova. I know I totally mangled that name. Question, what is blood magic? I guess it depends on who you talk to. Blood magic is pretty powerful stuff. And that is something that has been done traditionally, especially in Europe. They did a lot of blood magic. And I am not teaching you, I want to be clear, I'm not teaching you how to do it right now. Okay? So I just want to be clear about that, because blood magic is not something you mess around with. Don't play around with it. If you're going to do it, make sure that you karmically are supposed to do it, and you have a teacher who can teach you how to do it. Otherwise, just don't mess with it. But what it is it usually involves some kind of blood on something, in water, something like that, and it's a sacrifice. What you're doing is you're sacrificing your life force energy in exchange for something in return. And so, like I said, that's a very powerful form of magic that used to be practiced in various parts of Europe. And I don't recommend it unless you have a teacher. Lorena Greco, question. You have several rituals and meditations on your channel. Several? I have more than enough for anybody in one lifetime. And I want to pick one to do every day. Which one do you suggest? Well, I don't know. I would want to know what you wanted to do. If it's up to me, if you're going to ask me to pick one for you, I would say go do the Thor's hammer energy routine followed by the Hool breath. And while you do the Hool breath, throw out the question to Mother Hulda, where should I go next? What should I do next? Teach me where to go from here. And if there's another place where you belong or another practice that you belong doing, then she will guide you to it. Something will erupt in your life. I was going to say this earlier too, but again, it starts with starting from the assumption that you are connected to everything. You can ask. One of the things to do is not impose on the universe. Like you may have a desire, let's say you want to learn how to levitate, for example. Let's say that's what you want to do. Maybe that's what you want to do. Maybe there's something else that you want, and you think you want to levitate. So when you're working with the universe, if you're working with a deity, you don't have to be working with a deity. You can just talk directly to the universe if you want. And just say, show me the magical practice that will bring me my greatest evolution. Because it might be something far more intense and amazing than you could possibly think of. But in order to do that, you have to trust. And that's hard to do because you think, I want this, so I'm going to find everything I can. I'm going to find the person who's going to teach me how to levitate, when what you really want to do is some other magical thing. So ask the universe to show you. Now, Lorena, you asked me. I haven't seen your chart. If I had your chart, this is why, Vincent.thunderwizard.com, you can go to his website and he can give you a reading and give you a specific ritual for you based on your chart. And if you were to ask me and you were my apprentice, I would already have your astrology information, and I would say, well, let's look at your chart. And your chart would tell me exactly what your daily mantra meditation ritual should be. So in the meantime, if you don't have that, that's why I suggest doing the Thor's hammer meditation followed by the Hool breath, and then ask to be shown. Let's see what else. Guy Home, question. I have contact with a master from ancient times, a druid. I don't know what that means. Do you mean like there's an actual human being who's a druid? Or are you telling me that you have access to some druid ascended master? He showed me beech leaves and it's related to Mother Goddess. What kind of magic or rituals would help to work with that energy? I'm not a druid. I don't know anything about druid. If you've got access to a master in meditation who shows you stuff, what are you asking me for? He'll tell you. If he showed you what it was, then he's already telling you what to do. If you need more instruction, ask for it. Start with what you know. It's really important to listen to those guys. And if you're a lucky enough person that they talk to you, then listen. Having said that, I don't have any experience with beech or with anything druid. Birch bark, if you were talking about birch, I could talk about that, but I don't think that's what you're talking about. I am Magi. Question. I've been doing the celestial Qigong every morning for 3 to 5 months now. However, I have rarely felt the immense energy that comes from the practice. Could you explain why this might be? First question, are you on any medication? Do you take any drugs? Do you smoke weed? Do you drink? Those are my first questions for you. Other than that, I don't know. You might be doing it wrong. This is why Lots of times you need to have a teacher teach you in person, because if they just alter your posture a little bit, then all of a sudden the energy meridians light up and you can feel it. So it could be that there's a posture problem. It could be that. Another possibility is that you could be thinking too hard. At this point, honestly, it's hard for me to say. Maybe answer those questions and then let me know. I am Magi question. Do you have any knowledge of Kabbalistic magic? Nope. Again, if you watch my channel, what is it that I say? If it's something I teach, you'll hear me talk about it. Have you ever heard me talk about Kabbalistic magic? It's definitely not my thing, because Kabbal comes from the Abrahamic religion, and I don't like the Abrahamic religion, so I wouldn't recommend somebody do that. But that's me. A lot of people do Kabbal. Mazel tov. My hat's off. My hair's off to you. If it works for you, whatever works for you. Worthless pot smoker. Dumpster trash 420. You got to change your name, brah. Question: are there some key signs in one's life that shows past life karma? Are there key signs in one's life? Yeah. I grew up in a house with an alcoholic father and an overprotective, smothering mother, and a borderline, physically and mentally abusive older brother. So that tells you a lot. That's my karma. That's what made me who I am, is all of that craziness. Astrologically speaking, I have Mars in the third house in the sign of Libra, which is a very challenging position, because Mars in the third house is a fighter. Whenever you see somebody who has Mars in the third house, do not get in a fist fight with them, because they have the power, because the third house is hands. Mars is hands. It means if they punch you, they're going to knock you out. They'll have superhuman fighting power. In the sign of Libra, Libra is the sign of balance, is a Venus sign of love, balance, healing. So my Mars is in the sign of, a heavyweight. Well, I am a heavyweight now. Is the sign of a fighter, a warrior. Somebody who's supposed to make their money in the ring or UFC or something like that. But Venus is looking down at him. And so I talk about these really powerful martial arts. I mean, the irony is that I've learned some of the, if not the most deadly martial arts that's ever manifested on the planet. But early on, I had to take a vow of nonviolence. That's my karma. I must have. In fact, I've had past life regressions where I was an assassin and I was all that stuff. So I can't. The guy that I learned from, his teacher, was one of these guys that he became, known because he was invincible and he would fight anybody, anywhere, and he take on challenge matches and all that, and he was undefeated to this day. He can get away with that. I can't. I can't even touch somebody in such a way that causes them harm. The backlash of karma is immediate if I did that. So how can you find out what your karmic is? Look at your life. What are you having to deal with? I'd have to know you more to ask that question, but you can, again, figure it out. You can go into meditation and ask, what are the karmic lessons? And if you listen, you will get the answer. Maybe it won't come to you in a neon flash in front of your eyes, but maybe you'll get an intuition, or maybe the next day you'll see something or be led to something. The universe will respond to everybody in its own way if you communicate. And the most powerful prayer that you can say is things like, show me the most fulfilling path for me. Show me, here's another one, show me the most powerful method of my evolution. Show me what I really want. Show me what I'm fighting against. If you ask these questions, the universe has to respond. The more you listen, the more you'll hear. So I don't know you enough to know what your past life karma is. But I believe that you can find out. Raymond, question, do you have a simple advice on how to open your root chakra? First off, you don't need to open any chakras. Just let your chakras open on their own. The chakras open as a result of being mature. So you have a root chakra. If you're saying you have a root chakra issue, it means that you want stuff. You feel you need stuff to be safe, which is the infant. That's why infants need to be swaddled all the time, because they need to be surrounded by stuff and kept warm and safe, and that's the root chakra. So you need to feel safe. You need to feel like you have stuff to be safe. And the way to open your root chakra is to look to move past that. I'm sure there are physical things you could do. I'm sure there's yogic things you could do. But all of that, those are just exercises to stimulate the awareness of, hey, I don't need stuff to be okay. The universe will provide what I need. And then you get to move beyond infancy. So I, again, ask the universe, show me how I'm taken care of. And then watch what happens. I am Magi, no drugs, rarely any alcohol. Assuming you're telling me the truth, and rarely any alcohol means one drink every 3 months. Does rarely any alcohol mean, twice a week? Does it mean, getting drunk twice a week? Because everybody's got a different idea how much. If you really mean rarely any alcohol, I would get rid of alcohol altogether. Which, if you're rarely doing it, you don't need it, so I'd get rid of it. So if you're not doing any drugs and you're not having any alcohol, so it's not because of chemicals in your body, then that gets harder for me to answer, because I'd have to watch you and I'd have to look at your form to see what was going on. I mean, maybe it's the wrong thing for you. I mean, it's hard for me to imagine that. I mean, my experience is that for me, it's incredibly powerful, and anybody else that I know of that's done it, especially energy workers, it's been the most powerful. I've had Tai Chi masters go, I've never felt this kind of power before. So why you're not feeling it, I honestly don't know. I believe you, and I don't know that I have an answer for you. Maybe it's the wrong thing for you. I don't know. Maybe you're trying too hard. Maybe you're wanting it too badly. Another thing you can do is pick, of all of the celestial Qigong practices that you do, find the one where you feel the most energy. And just do that one exercise. Try doing it for an hour a day. See what happens. And if that doesn't work, then I may not have any answers for you. It might just be the wrong thing for you. Guy home is responding to something I must have said. Do I have any knowledge of Kabbalistic magic? Yes, he will tell me. I don't know what you're talking about. I wanted to know if you had practices to help. I don't do Kabbalah, so no, of course I don't. I don't have any knowledge of that. He wants me to work with flowers. Are you talking about who are you talking about? I mean, who talked about Kabbalistic magic? Was that guy home? No, I am Magi. So Kabbalistic. So the guy home was asking about the druid. So I'm assuming this is some ascended master you're working with. Yeah, he'll tell you. I don't have any practices. Yep. Yeah. I can't help you because it's not my tradition and I don't know anything about But that's great that you have that. And, not every, really value that, because not everybody has that. You've got an ascended master that's working with you. This is one of the things that I've found nowadays, because the living masters are getting rarer and rarer, and there are whole traditions that are dying because there's nobody. It's sad. There are masters in the world who will be the last people to practice their tradition because there's nobody else that they can teach, or nobody else that either wants to be taught or is worthy of being taught, and so their knowledge will die with them. Those masters, because here's the truth about any teacher. Any teacher, it is a karmic, it's their karmic duty to pass on their knowledge to a worthy student. I had a guy email me and take me through this whole manipulation about why I should teach him for free because he's the perfect student and it's my responsibility to pass on my knowledge. He's right about that. It is my duty to pass on my knowledge. But he definitely was not worthy, just because of the things that he said and did. It's not an attack. He's just not the right guy. Not yet, anyway. And but there are masters out there floating around in the ethers with knowledge that maybe hasn't been seen for thousands of years. Super powerful, the most powerful stuff you can imagine. They're looking for somebody. And if you make yourself available to them, just by saying, is there any masters out there that want to teach me? If you are somebody that can hear and that they can transmit their knowledge to you, they will find you. Now, if you want to be one of those people, then you have to get started with the basics. So let's say you want to learn an energy tradition, like the most powerful energy tradition. Then you find whatever teacher you can find and you train with them and you master the basics of whatever that person is teaching. Even though you might end up doing something different, far beyond whatever this guy's teaching you. Even if you're with the teacher and you can tell the teacher, it doesn't know what they're talking about, or they're a pain in the ass, or doesn't matter. Master what they have. Because then you'll have something that this ascended master can work with. Because they can work with your basics. But if you don't even have the basics, it doesn't matter. Even if they give you a technique, you won't hear it or you won't know what to do with it. That's why the student-teacher relationship is so important. Even if the teacher isn't what you deem to be worthy, if they have knowledge that you want, treat them like they are the most powerful master you've ever met, and do everything that they say. If they're not worthy, then dump them and go someplace else. But if they have something, if they have more than you, if they know more than you, and you would like to at least be at their level, then listen to what they have to say. Because then the ascended masters can then pluck you out from that and then teach you. Let's see what else. Vincent.thunderwizard.com says, question, could you explain the shift or difference in perspective from someone doing the manifestation rituals you teach on your Patreon versus someone wanting to manifest from a scarcity mindset? Well, people could still be doing the manifestation rituals that I teach and still be coming from a scarcity mindset. So just becoming conscious that you think that way, I'm not saying you are, but that if one were to become conscious of that, that is important in and of itself. Because then you could be working against yourself, trying to manifest by doing a ritual when internally you're fighting. The other thing to be aware of is that manifestation, if we're talking about money or success, which is usually it represents something like that to whomever, bear in mind that you may have an unconscious, not you personally, but one might have unconscious resistance towards evolving, which means that consciously They really want to evolve. But on an unconscious level, they've been programmed not to want it. Give you an extreme example. I was looking at something having to do with people who had borderline personality disorder. And one of the problems that they run into is that when they get into therapy and they start to change, the people in their life get very uncomfortable because the people in their life want them to be really screwed up. So they either overtly or subtly, shame them from evolving because, that person ends up being the scapegoat for the rest of the family. They point fingers and so they use that person to feel better about themselves. And this can happen on a very subtle level. So the message is that in order to be loved by my family, I have to be really screwed up. Or that's what they say. That's not what I'm saying. I want the universe to be clear on that. That's what they say. And so on a conscious level, they want to get better, but on an unconscious level, they want to sabotage themselves because they want to be loved. So when it comes to, if you're having trouble manifesting money, success, whatever it is, then you want to look at any unconscious agendas you have from not achieving success, because there might be an unconscious pattern of belief that says if I succeed, then so-and-so might not love me. Your parents might judge you, or, you think that the world won't accept you. And so, people, they're doing the rituals, but they're stopping themselves with that. So when it comes to that, it's great if you can become conscious of it, but sometimes the only thing you can do is just become aware of what you want. That's the most important thing. It doesn't matter what you're doing if you don't know what you want. The person who asked me about, is it okay to use my powers to manifest money? Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that, but my first thought is, it gives me the feeling that you don't know what you want in life because the only thing you're thinking about is money. And then it just feels like once you get that money, you'll spend it and then you'll be right back where you were. You might even be worse. But, knowing what you want is really the most important thing. And if you have family or unconscious or past life resistance, it will come up. And when the resistance comes up, which could be physical, it happens. This is one of the things that has happened to me in my life, where if I start to advance, I get pains in my body, and I know, I must be starting to evolve because, my left leg would hurt, right? Or pain in my shins or something like that. And that's an unconscious, in fact, I just said that and I got pain in my shin. Ow. That's an unconscious sign, that there's an internal conflict. But if you just go, well, I'm not going to let that stop me, and you still keep going after what you want, then you'll get to a breaking point where either you'll give up or you will work through it, and it can be very challenging. So what's the difference? Sometimes there isn't a difference. Let me read the question again. Someone doing the manifestation versus someone wanting to manifest from a scarcity mindset. So that's the question. What are you trying to manifest? Is what you're trying to manifest, is it coming from a place of fear? Like, oh my gosh, I need more money, and if I just had money, I'd be okay. Well, of course you'd be okay if you had more money, but that's not what we're talking about. That's coming from a feeling of, I won't get what I need. But if you come from the assumption, which doesn't have to be a feeling, you can feel afraid, but you assume, I'm going to get everything that I need. Even though I'm afraid right now, I'm going to get everything that I need, and I'm going to act accordingly. And I made that decision a lot of times. There were times in my life when, I was struggling to pay the rent and I was in debt, and, it started sounding like a really good idea to go work at Walmart. Just to have, and then the more I thought about it, I said, I'm going to be spending, 20 hours or 40 hours a week, some, crappy job, and I won't get anything done in my life. I said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'll struggle before that happens, and I'd always have everything that I needed. So, I didn't give in. There's always going to be something that's going to try and talk you out of it. And you have to ask yourself, what is it that I want? And keep doing what you want. And I wish I could sugarcoat it. And unfortunately, I'm not Zohar the Magnificent, giving you the secret, manifestation, new agey nonsense. I'm here telling you the truth. That real manifestation that for some people is going to bring up a lot of challenges. And that's just the way it is. And it doesn't change what you have to do. You have to, it is a command. You must follow your soul's desire. You must do it. If you don't, misery will follow. Whatever pain you're experiencing is nothing compared to the pain you will experience if you do not give yourself the joy that your soul wants to give you. If you deny yourself your soul desire, it will come back hard. Let's see what else. Buddy Helm asks, do you use crystals? Sure. I love crystals. It's not a big thing of mine, but I do. Did you have another question beyond that? I am Magi says, I think I'm trying too hard. That's two O's. There's T-O and T-O-O. You meant to write T-O-O. Sorry, I can't help it. I think about language. I think I'm trying too hard or wanting it to feel the energy too much. Yeah, so that'll block you right there. So when you do it, do you feel a warmth in your hands? Does your hands get red, like blood, blood vessels in the hands? That means it's working. I feel it every time I do it, but that's me, and I think most people do. But I imagine, he's talking about celestial Qigong, by the way. So check that out. See, here's the other thing. When you do the meditations, when you do the celestial Qigong meditations, does your life get better? That's a sign it's working also. I still think you should, just to experiment, take one of the exercises that you feel the most and then do it for an hour every day. Because maybe, sometimes what needs to happen is that the meridians need to be opened up. And thinking too hard will squish the meridians down. If you're struggling and thinking too hard, that's why, you have to be in this meditative, state of emptiness and relaxing and breathing and all that, because that opens up the meridians. But if you're worried, if you're, that'll squish them down. What else? I am Magi. Question. I've been struggling to evolve myself into the mage I feel I'm being called to be. Ought I to do blood over intent on a vow to myself, to the universe, proclaiming my intent to become this? I don't know. I don't teach blood over intent. I did one video on it. It was a clickbait video. I don't have anything against blood over intent. I mean, the ritual itself I don't have a problem with. All the stuff associated with it I think is nonsense. But should you do that? I don't know. I think first off, just accept, if you're meant to be one, and I love your name, I am Magi. I think that's great. If you're meant to be one, you will be one. Or you are one. The other thing is you might have huge powers that you're not even aware of because you're trying so hard to get powers you don't think you have. So, stop trying so hard. Meditate on why you're so hard on yourself. Why are you so critical? Because, in order for magic to work, you've got to be like a little child. You really kind of have to be that. You have to be willing. This is kind of the walking on the edge of the razor. Because, I make fun of the the Wiccan wannabes, it's just all fantasy and they're not accomplishing anything. I went to one Wicca thing a long time ago because I didn't know. I thought Wicca was different than I experienced it. And there was just some, middle-aged woman, and she was going, "You have a dragon, and his name is George. And George says," and I'm just like, "Oh my God." Oh my God. There's people out there smoking cigarettes and smoking weed, and it's just all fantasy. There's no reality to it. There's no technique. There's nothing. At least in that's what I experienced. But at the same time, there has to be that openness when you do have a real technique to listen. And for instance, the Hool breath. Now, that for me works. A lot of people tell me it's healed them of all kinds of things. I was trying to achieve mastery where I was, and I had to, because I lost connection to the higher ups in my sect. I got kicked out. I had to start grabbing whatever I could in the hopes of achieving mastery. And so I started doing 2 different traditions, and the energies were clashing, and I was having horrible headaches. So just in desperation, I just went into a meditative pose, and I just said, if there's anybody out there, I just need one sound, one something to fix this, this energy imbalance. And what came to me was the Hool breath. But it was so subtle. It wasn't like I saw a neon flashing light of a huge thing on the... It was this very subtle intuition that was coming to me. And I could very easily have just swatted it away like a fly. But I decided to just listen to it and try. And I did it, and everything fixed itself. And I went, oh my gosh, what the heck is this? So there's a good chance you are trying too hard and you're not listening. You got to listen. It's a very subtle thing. Very rarely do you get the burning bush experiences. Those do happen, but they're very rare. Let's see what else. Raymanovich, can I learn to manifest any specific person? I don't know what you're talking about. You mean, do you want to manifest like a bikini model that you just saw in a magazine? You want to manifest her like some kind of a blow-up doll? Why do you need to manifest a specific person? What's wrong with you? Why do you need somebody else? Period. Why would you want to do that? I mean, you're coming from a place of what's wrong with you? What's wrong with just being you? You have everything. You are everything. The mindset of that question is only going to take you down it's never going to be enough. I can guarantee you that if you could manifest a specific person, after playing with that person for a little while, you would get bored and you'd need something else. So you're going down the wrong path. That's not, learn to be okay with you before you start, that's not going to get you anywhere. Having said that, I understand your question, and I have had those thoughts as well. Can you do it? Can you learn to do it? I don't know. Maybe you can. I don't know that it's going to be helpful for you. Buddy Helm question, what's your favorite crystal to work with? Well, that's my thing. I like Tibetan quartz, smoky Tibetan quartz. But that's me. I Am Magi says, my hands do get warm and it turns kind of white. I do feel very relaxed and tranquil afterwards. So it's working just fine. I don't know what you're trying to impose on it. I get why you're doing it, because that's why I do it. So it's working. So learn how to surrender more to whatever experience you're having. Don't try and impose what you think it's supposed to be. Because if you let it take you where it wants to take you, you're going to find power you didn't know existed. It may not come in the way you think. And having said that, everybody's different. When I do it, I mean, it's so intense for me. I mean, in fact, I've gotten to the place now where I used to do it for hours and hours and hours, and I can't now. If I do it, for a certain length of time, I start to blow out circuits. It gets to be too much. I have to stop. But I've been doing it for, 20, 30 years. Law Stewart question. What question has not been asked before to you, and what areas of life really do you question the most? I don't understand your question. Why are you asking me that? How does that help you? That sounds like the kind of question when you're, having a drink with somebody and you want to get some intellectual bond going, you kind of ask them that question. How does that help you? I'm here to help you. So what question has not been asked before to me? Whichever is your honest question has not been asked to me. I'm interested in an honest question of something that you want to learn, that you think I can help you with. That's the question that hasn't been asked by you to me yet. What areas of life reality do you question the most? How does that help you? Why do you need to psychoanalyze me? I mean, I'm not judging it. I just don't understand it. Is it fun for you? Are you testing me? Are you wanting to be my bud? What do you gain out of asking me these questions? That's what I really want. When I'm looking for a question, lots of times I'll tell people to re-ask the question, because they'll ask, there's an assumption, usually a question, especially if it's a defensive question, like they're asking from their fear or from their insecurity, there will be a defensive question, which will be, is it possible to do such and such? To which my response will be, why do you want to do that? Because I want to answer their need. And when I know what their need is, I can say, what you really want to ask me is X, Y, and Z. And then I can give you the answer you're looking for. So I don't know what your actual question is, Law Stewart. I don't sense an honest need from me to help you with something. But I appreciate that you at least asked a question. I am Medjai. Yeah, that's it. Okay, nothing else? Is there anything else I want to say? The 90-day challenge, thunderwizard.com. There's more stuff coming. You guys are coming into a real, I think, we'll see what happens, a real lucky period. Because I'm practicing now some of the really, really high-level stuff that I haven't been practicing for a bunch of reasons. But I'm going to try and take that stuff and give it to you in the safest, most effective way possible. My goal, which I don't know if I'll be able to pull it off or not, but here's my goal. Thunderwizard.com is my subscription site. And there's all levels of subscription. And it's what pays my bills. So a lot of people, that's how they become an apprentice, is through that site. In fact, that's the only way you can be an apprentice. But at whatever level you subscribe at, you will have more than enough teaching materials that will last you for at least a year, any one of them. So you've got nothing to lose. Now, if I get to the point where, and I wish I could manifest more subscribers, I wish I had the amount of subscribers that some other sites have, that I'm like, why do people even listen to that person? And they got billions of subscribers. If I had 1,000, 5,000 people subscribe to my Thunder Wizard site, everything would be free, in the sense I would unload it all onto the subscription site, and all you'd have to do is just subscribe at whatever level, and you'd have access to all kinds of stuff. But I can't do that until I get enough people to subscribe. So all the stuff that's costing right now, which is the courses.thunderwizard.com, those are the stuff that you pay for. That pays my bills. And eventually I want to take all that stuff and move it over to the subscription site. So you can, if you're a subscriber, you can have access to all of it. By the way, while I'm on the subject, I still have a couple of these left, and then I will have to, for tax purposes, discontinue this. And that is lockdown.thunderwizard.com. If you go there, you will get pretty much everything that is on the courses site, and you'll save $2,000. Do that now because this is the last time you'll see it. And again, there's probably just a couple more left, and then I'm going to have to discontinue that forever. Let's see what else. Okay, so Law Stewart's been around for a long time, so I appreciate you reaching out. Yeah, again, that question felt like two guys having a beer and just trying to get to know somebody. It felt like you were just trying to get to know me. And that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to teach. I have friends on the side I hang out with. I'm here to teach you guys. It's a whole different mindset for me, so I don't even go there. So I acknowledge and appreciate that. But yeah, that's just not how I roll, man. All right, is that it for me? That's it for me. I don't see any more questions. I've done all the sales I'm going to do. So that's it for me, guys. I wish you all the best. If you have questions, like if you want to see videos, you want to see me do certain kinds of videos, put it in the comments section once the video gets archived. Not in the live chat now because I won't see it. But when a video gets archived, say, hey, can you make a video about this, that, or the other thing? And if it's interesting to me, I will. Okay. Talk to you all